You are listening to Anna Letitia Cook at Women Up Radio.
Good evening and welcome to Women Up Radio. Today's guest is Elaine Slatter. Elaine has an extensive corporate resume spanning over 30 years of experience in manufacturing, retail and distribution. She was the CEO of the Canadian operations for a US manufacturer, as well as the owner of a retail business. When she left corporate, she became the founder and CEO of XL Consulting Group. This consultancy is a small business advisory, and it specializes in entrepreneurial startups and businesses that aren't experiencing their full potential. Also, and most important, she's a very strong advocate for women's leadership and growth. So welcome back to the show, Elaine. It's lovely to see you.
Yeah, it's great to see you again, Anna. It's been a while. And
I know.
Of course, it's been an exciting time for you and an exciting time for me, I think.
Definitely. It's been, 3 years? It must be 3 years ago. And I know last time we spoke about women's entrepreneurial skills. And I know you've got a lot of experience in that and in helping women develop. So what do you see as happening with women's entrepreneurship at the moment? And has there been much change over the last few years, particularly since we last spoke?
Yes, I think there has been a big change in the last couple of years with COVID. I think when COVID happened, women left the workforce, the corporate world, in droves because they really didn't have any choice if they had a family, because they had to stay at home, they had children at home, they had to homeschool them. The kids were in and out of school. So it was a very rough time. And if they were in a corporate job, sometimes they just couldn't handle that whole thing of working with kids, minding kids at the same time. And so many women sort of took some time, maybe 3 months, 6 months, and said, okay, this isn't for me. What can I do? Is there a business I could start from home? And so, yes, I think in the last couple of years, more women have flocked to entrepreneurship, and they're very creative. So they've come up with all different kinds of businesses.
So what do you think, what strengths and qualities do we need to become a successful entrepreneur? And how do these compare with the strengths and qualities needed for successful leadership? Are they interchangeable, or is there more of a lean one way or the other?
Well, I think for the first time, women who want to go into the entrepreneurial world need a lot of self-belief. So it's a time when you have to kind of take stock of all your assets, what you're good at, and really believe in that, and not get distracted by I'm not good enough. Nobody's going to listen to me. I don't have all the qualifications, all that self-doubt stuff. You have to really work on yourself to be mindful, be in the present, and actually believe in yourself. Because if you don't believe in you, nobody else is going to. So I think women tend to stay in the background, and they think if they toot their own horn, they're being egotistical, more like a male, all these other things. But you know what? Women have to get over that part and say, okay, if I don't believe in myself and I'm not willing to get out there and get in front of people, then somebody else is. It could be a guy or it could be another woman, but why isn't it you? You really have to start with that big self-belief and get rid of the self-doubt. And I think another thing when you're starting in entrepreneurship is often you start as a solopreneur. And that's a very lonely path if you're not used to it, because you're the one and only of everything. You're your own bookkeeper, you're your own marketing department, your own sales department, your own customer service department, and you've got to come up with your own product or your own services. So you might be looking at packaging and graphic design and website development. There's a ton of stuff that you have to do. So the first thing I would say to that question is find somebody to help you. Find a group, get mentorship, get coaching.
Yeah.
Don't be shy about that. Put some money into that if you don't feel that you're strong enough to take on that sole proprietorship. And also make use of services such as Fiverr. I use Fiverr for my podcast editing, and I found the best editor in Bosnia, and I'm here in Canada, so it's a long way away. She gives me A1 service, never been late.
Yeah.
Her work is absolutely perfect, and the price is unbelievably inexpensive. So, for the $10 per episode, I couldn't do it myself. I'd be spending hours. So stuff like that. So don't be afraid to outsource at the beginning, because if you are a sole proprietor, you need to know what stuff you absolutely have to do, what other things that you can give to somebody else, and give up perfectionism. That's the second thing. Nothing has to be absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, I learned that in the corporate world. I used to say to my staff, look, if they were anxious about doing a project, I'd say to them, look, this isn't rocket science. We have a process. If you follow the process, everything's going to work out okay. Yeah. There's a team around you that if you need help, put up your hand and don't be afraid to ask for help, because that's really important that we know where you're struggling. And you know what? It's not the end of the world if something goes wrong. Everything can be fixed. Yeah. So that's the thing to remember when you're in entrepreneurship too. There's nothing that's, a catastrophe usually, and everything can be fixed. So, make sure you have a team of people around you. They don't have to be employees, but people you can count on to help you out of a fix.
Yeah.
And there you go. You just go for it. Don't spend a long time deciding, oh, should I, shouldn't I? Get your business plan together, even if you're going to change it. You've got to do some research to see if you have a market or not. Yeah. And just go for it. You can always pivot, change direction, change anything in your business, as long as you know what you want to change and why you want to change it. So, and the other thing I would say if you're starting out, is entrepreneurship is different than a corporate job, because in entrepreneurship, you're taking a risk. You're taking a financial risk, right? In a corporate job, you're not really taking a risk. Somebody has hired you to do X, Y, Z, and they're going to pay you every week, whether you're good at it, not good at it. I mean, if you're not terrible at it, you're not going to keep your job, right? But I mean, you are going to get a paycheck every single week. Well, entrepreneurship isn't like that. So my other suggestion is that you have at least 1 year of savings put aside, so that during that first year, when you perhaps don't have the sales that you expected, you've got a cushion there.
Yes.
And also, if it's possible, to start your entrepreneurship as a side gig. So you get a taste of it. What is it like? Am I cut out for this? Especially if you're doing the transition from the corporate world and you've never done entrepreneurship before. It's a whole different world. So I think you do need to be prepared. Are there things that are in common? Leadership. If you had a leadership position in the corporate world, you are well ahead of the game going into the entrepreneurial world, because you understand what leadership is. Yep. You've developed your leadership style. You know how to corral teams. You know how to motivate teams. You know how to get projects off the ground, all those kinds of things that you will need as an entrepreneur. They're slightly different, especially at the startup, but you definitely, if you are trying to grow your business to, 100K, 200, 1 million, wherever you're going, leadership skills, I can't emphasize enough, because at some point you're going to be out of sole proprietorship, and then your be a corporation, and you'll need those same corporate leadership skills that you had in the corporate world.
Yeah. And do you think, because obviously you're originally from the UK, you've been living in Canada for years, and you also worked as CEO of an American company, the Canadian part of it. So you've got the experience of UK, Canadian, American. Do you see a different mentality or different skills that are necessary in the different countries? Or are they all the same? I only ask because I work so much with other countries in Europe, and you can have a huge culture difference between the UK and France, or France and Greece, or, and you have to really take into account the different way of thinking, the different beliefs of what is good and what isn't good, because we really do think very differently. So do you see that with these Anglo-Saxon cultures? Are they similar, or are there still very distinct differences?
I think generally in business, there is a common business culture, but I definitely think you're absolutely right that each country has its own culture, which shades or colors all businesses, and the public sector, the private sector. Yes, when we were working on a lot of cross-border projects, when I was in the corporate world, we had divisions all over the world. We had factories in China, we had factories in Indonesia, Australia, the US, Mexico. We had offices in the UK. We had them all over Europe, the Middle East. And when I was in that corporate world and we were moving our customer service department from the US to Canada, one of the reasons it wasn't really successful, the international customer service department, was because it was very Americanized. It had been in San Francisco, it had been in Wichita. And so I pitched to my boss, who was a Brit, funnily enough, that the reason it would be a good fit to have that department in Canada is that Canada is a very, very multicultural country. We have every culture under the sun. And because our office was maybe about 3/4 of an hour outside of the Toronto airport, people settled from the different countries, settled in the area. So if you wanted any kind of language skill, if you needed Portuguese, if you needed Spanish, Latin American Spanish, because we had a lot of business in Latin America. So we needed the Portuguese of Brazil, and we needed the Spanish from Peru and Ecuador on that side, rather than the European Spanish. We needed Urdu. We needed the Middle East languages. And so that's what we did. And we hired all the different people that understood those cultures, so that when they were servicing them, overseas orders, we were shipping the orders from all our factories all over the world and coordinating it and talking to the customers in their own language if they needed to be. So yes, absolutely, there is a cultural difference. And even working with our US head office, it was a very different, very different. We had different executives. Sometimes we had a Canadian CEO, sometimes we had a US CEO, and sometimes we had an Australian CEO. So as part of the leadership team, I found it fascinating and really important to understand where that CEO's thinking was coming from. And then you could serve back your idea in messaging and in the language that he was used to hearing and used to working in. And you weren't forcing your culture on his culture. After all, he was the CEO, right? So, we had to learn how to adapt. And I think actually Europeans and Brits and Canadians are very used to adapting.
Yeah.
because we're not the dominant business culture. I mean, the US, to be and you know, to be honest, is the number one still in the world. Yeah. China is there too, but in the way businesses run, the US, I would say, is clearly still the leader.
Yes.
And so even though our culture is different, we learned how to pitch and make suggestions in a way that they could understand and they could implement. And if you work that way collegially, understanding the different cultures, what drives people, you know, and it's different in every culture, then I think you're going to have a very successful international business.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, do you think that that transfers also to entrepreneurship? Even when you're starting small, the different countries view it in a different way, and the support is a different way again. So depending on where you start, you may or may not get a different vision of what it is and what the success of entrepreneurship is, and what's necessary to do it. Do you find that, or am I barking up the wrong tree there?
No, I do believe that. For example, there is a business out in Nova Scotia, which is on the Atlantic eastern side of Canada, that produces probiotics. It's called the Cultured Coconut, and it is a company that's selling all over the globe, and it's a refrigerated product. So they would have to understand how to export that to the different countries, given that it's a refrigerated product, and how is it going to be handled across, you know, in the shipping part of it, what kind of containers, how long is it going to sit on the dock in or on the runway or whatever. And so they really have to understand what countries they're exporting to and how to do it efficiently, cost effectively. Is it a good idea to go into that country with that product, or is it prohibitive? Because sometimes you have to say, no, that's not a good fit. Now, if you're a service provider and you're providing services, you still have to understand how your audience in different parts of the world would view you.
Yeah.
And does your style fit that cultural style of that country?
Yeah.
Because, you know, having been raised in Britain, I would say the Brits and the Canadians and the Americans are very direct. But there are a lot of cultures where directness is offensive. If you haven't sort of built that longer cultural get to know you part, they think you're rude.
Yeah.
You know, and we're not rude. We're not rude at all. It's just that our cultures on business is totally different.
Yeah.
And therefore we want to go snap, 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 A, B, C.
Yeah.
You know, and not every country is like that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's very interesting. I know the different countries that I've worked in, I've had to become a chameleon, because if I do my traditional British way, some of them would be like, ugh, you know. But then others, if I'm not stronger or more direct, they'd be like, oh, she's useless because, you know, she doesn't do it. So I found I've had to really learn what they believe, what they find insulting, what they find strength or power or positivity, etc., and then try and sort of negotiate and navigate, not negotiate, navigate, sorry.
Navigate so that what you're delivering is what they're looking for and what they want.
Yeah, exactly. So
rather than what you know and how you would teach a Brit or an American or a Canadian. It's exactly the same substance, but just delivered in a different way.
But I moved back to the UK 3 years ago, because before that I was in France and in Spain. And so, I mean, I am British. I mean, okay, I'm dual nationality, British and Irish, but, you know, I'm British. And I've been living out of the UK for over 20 years. When I came back, I found I'd forgotten how British people do things. And there were things that people were doing and saying, and I was like, oh God, I'd forgotten that. And I had to adapt to being back in the UK. And I found that really strange because I really didn't expect that. But you can get so used to moving in a different stream that sort of coming back to basics, it can be quite interesting. So,
Yes, I actually find the same thing when I come back to the UK for vacation. My brother and sister-in-law and my nieces live in the
yeah,
UK. So I come back. I haven't been back for a while because of COVID, but
yeah,
when I come back, there's certain things that I will not do anymore. And one is driving. And when
yeah,
I think that when I was young, I drove all around the place and didn't
yeah,
think anything of it, but
yeah.
that's on my no list, right? And I'm not even interested in relearning how to drive on the other side of the road. But yes, it is different. And
Yeah,
when I come back to Canada, my family, my own children
yeah.
laugh at me because they think I've in a month I've become a Brit again, right? Because I've chameleoned again back into being a Brit. So
It's
yeah, it
funny.
is absolutely hilarious. Yes, I think that's one
Dear.
of the wonders of travel,
Yeah, yeah, it's good fun. So anyway,
Mhm.
another thing I wanted to ask you, I know that you've created a really wonderful, thriving community of independent women in leadership. Now, I've heard a little about it. I don't know much about it. So can you tell us more about what it is, what it does, how it works? Because it sounds like it could be a model that would be really good for people to be able to recreate in their own region. Because if women can support each other in leadership to help each other along, it's great. Everyone helping each other. But tell us more about it.
Yeah, well, I'm into giving back to the community now that I'm not in the corporate world. I didn't have time to give back to women at that time,
Yeah,
but I realized that women aren't as far along in business as they should be. Some are, but some aren't.
yeah,
And what could we do to help them? So I got together with some people that I really admired that I considered leaders
yeah,
in our local community. And I pitched the idea of women in leadership.
yeah.
And I also pitched it to the local Chamber of Commerce. And they
Oh,
were kind
right.
of
Yeah,
thrilled at the time.
yeah,
And this is a lesson learned that I'll share with you. And so we did start originally under the Chamber of Commerce.
yeah,
And our mandate was to educate women and bring them along in leadership and help them with their businesses. So that was our mandate. And we had decided to do monthly meetings and bring in speakers so that on topics that women were interested in from a women's perspective.
yeah,
And that way it would bring along more women into thinking more strategically and growing their businesses. So we started off like that. And we did that for a year.
yeah,
But working within an organization is sometimes a little difficult.
yeah.
And we had a mandate that we wanted to do this every month. And I think the chamber felt that that was too much. It took too much effort on their side. We were all organized. We had our
Yeah,
speakers, we had their bios, we had their photos, but the chamber wasn't ready to actually execute a program 12
yeah.
months of the year, right? They
Really?
weren't, they wanted to do it more slowly.
Oh,
And we
God.
thought, oh my gosh, no, we want to get going.
Yeah,
So at the end of the year, we kind of parted ways with the chamber because
yeah,
they were going in a different direction.
yeah,
They wanted maybe quarterly events and
yes,
maybe one big event. And we
yeah,
wanted to keep the momentum
yeah,
going, do 12 events
yeah,
and also have a big event.
yeah.
So we sort of splintered off and did our own thing. The chamber actually has hardly done anything
Oh,
in the 2
really?
years since then. And we've gone along and we've had 24 events, and then we had a huge event. The last time we actually physically got together, which was 500 women that we put into a local huge venue
Yeah.
owned by a woman,
Yeah.
and we had a fantastic event. And to get 500 women out for our first event was incredible.
It's
And that
enormous.
wasn't it. That wasn't just us as
Yeah.
independent women in leadership. It was working together with 7 other women's group to put this
Yeah.
on and to raise money for our local United Way women's and children's programs. So we raised $24,000 that first year.
Really?
hmm
Oh
in
God,
that one event.
that's incredible.
hmm And that's the power of women working together.
Yeah.
We all had
Yeah.
different strengths. One girl was extremely good with sponsorships.
Yeah.
Some of us were good at selling, vendor spots.
Yeah.
Some people were great at meet and greet. Some were
Yeah.
fantastic at social media. Whatever their strength was, we'd lean on them. And working together, we put on that incredible event. But then COVID hit.
Yeah.
So we decided, okay, what are we going to do? We continued our monthly meetings on Zoom.
Oh, well
So they're
done.
done through Meetup for
Yeah.
our independent women in leadership.
Yeah.
So when you do it on Meetup has its own community of people that are looking for meetups in their
Yeah.
local area. So we have over 500 women all around the world now,
Oh,
but still
really?
predominantly in Canada, I would say,
Yeah.
that come to our workshops that we hold monthly because they're all on Zoom. So we
Yeah.
network on Zoom, the workshops on Zoom, and eventually we'll go back to in-person
Yeah.
events, but not until we're comfortable. And we think it'll be at least the spring of 2022 before
Yeah.
that's going to happen,
Yeah.
where everybody's comfortable doing
Yes.
it. I see a few live events going on, but
Yeah.
many people still are a little
Yeah.
iffy about that. So we're
Yeah.
going to give it a break until the spring of
Yeah.
2022. And so
But
what we did for raising money is we got together with the United Way and we said, what can we do? We know we can't meet in person. And they said, well, we have an online platform. We can do online auctions. And we said,
oh, right.
seven groups of women said, okay, that's what we'll do. So we put on an online auction. So we canvassed local businesses for
Yeah.
services and products that they would donate. And then the auction was on for a week and you could bid on different things, right? You
Yeah.
could bid on vacations. You could bid on coaching services. You could bid on barbecues, fire pits, shoes, whatever, jewelry.
Yeah.
And we raised $18,000 in 1 week.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, good God,
So
that's amazing.
I think that's the power of women working together.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah.
is this something that other countries and regions can create as well? Is it, can it
Mhm.
be replicated or?
Yes, I think absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. I think there is a networking group uh, run by an expat in Spain.
Yeah.
So they've done something similar in
Yeah.
Spain. So I think the same thing. I think Melita in Switzerland has something similar.
Yeah.
So yes, it can be replicated all over the world. Just
Yeah.
use the cultural differences as to
Yes.
what would work in your country.
Yeah.
What is the best method of getting the word out
Yeah.
about it? And it's all, I think, through teamwork. So our organization has 4 founders and we each have a role
Yeah.
in it. And then we have, I think, about 5 or 6 ambassadors. And their job is to get the word out. So every month we create a flyer and their job is to share it on their own social network
Yep.
and within their own communities, because
Yeah.
everybody has a different social network.
Yep.
And that they may have overlaps, but a lot of them are very different. So
Yep.
That's how they get the word out. And we have at least, I would say every workshop has about 30 people that sign
Yep.
up for it. And that's a very manageable group.
Yes.
And then we help them if in the networking part, what do you need help with? And we're very collaborative. So we suggest different other groups that might be
Yeah.
a good fit for them,
Yeah.
or coaching or mentoring or
Yeah.
whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, it sounds great. And the people in the groups that you know anyway, are they mostly private sector women? Because I was just wondering if it's something that could also be done in public sector. Because I mean, I'm not very familiar with public sector. I've always been in private sector, but I know women want to succeed, be equal, develop leadership in the public sector as well. And sometimes it seems that it's more of a challenge for them. So do you think it's the type of group that could transfer to a public sector type environment, or would that not really work?
I think taking the Chamber of Commerce example, I
Mm,
think if you go into the public sector, you need a high senior management leader who is a
yeah,
woman. For example, in Canada, we have a CEO of FedEx
yep,
who is a woman, right?
yep,
Now, if she wanted to do that in the corporate sector,
yep,
FedEx is a publicly owned company, she would have to be the driver of that,
yep,
or somebody in the US on the
yep,
board of directors or in a high management position
yep,
needs to be the driver of it.
yep,
For example, Sheryl Sandberg,
yep,
COO of Facebook, publicly held company,
yep.
she has outwardly talked about female leadership.
Hang on, Elaine, I've lost you.
Sandberg. So if
Oh, no,
she
come back.
is wanting to encourage women leadership and start something like we have done
Yep,
to educate women and so on,
yep,
she would have to spearhead that and have a group of ambassadors or a
yep,
group of women or and men too that really, really believed in that
yes,
and therefore drove it and were so passionate about it that they had everything worked out
yep,
and what they had to do and be consistent and keep
yep,
pushing and driving it because
yep,
it takes that amount of passion. It's no good giving lip service to it in
yes,
the corporate world. In the
yep,
public sector, we tend to think of, companies that do good companies. All companies want to do good, but
yep,
how much is it lip service or branding or whatever, and how much is there real depth to the program?
yeah,
I'm an in-depth kind of person. I'm going to do something. I'm 100% in. I'm
yeah,
not going to be wishy-washy about it. I'm going to really stand behind it. If we say we're going to do it every month, we're going to do it every month.
yes,
And sector, you have to have that same focus. If your corporation isn't the least bit interested in diversity and women, then don't even try to do it because
yeah,
it's going to be a huge uphill battle. But if you can find um, we can create
okay. Hold on a
such
minute.
a CEO.
Yeah, it's all right. I just had a notification saying my internet connection was unstable. So
Oh,
if I suddenly lose you, I will be back. Right?
okay.
Okay,
Well,
just
just
so
tell
you
me,
know.
okay.
Right,
Yeah,
that's okay.
yeah.
So, but and what about government, as in, government administration? Do you think it's something that would happen there? I mean,
Ooh, that's a
or
loaded question, Anna. Very loaded question.
I'm just thinking, of local councils and things like that. Um,
Make
are they?
really slow
Yeah,
progress.
yeah, yeah. Okay, right. We'll move on to the next one. So, um, how do you see the future of women's careers and the impact that they can have on the community over the next decade? Do you think, what do you think will happen over the next decade? How much development, how much growth? Will it be significant?
And now we're frozen.
Uh, can you hear me now?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So I think in the future, I have great faith in our young people. I truly do. Young women today, I mean, I have a granddaughter who will be graduating from high school next year, and she's extremely focused on a career. And I believe that she will get there because she is 100% focused, and she's a very hard worker. And for all people say about young people not being that way, I see a core of young women that have that determination, that aren't going to be detracted, that are interested in engineering and math related technology, biosciences, organic foods, bettering the climate, whatever it is, and they are going to make a difference. And so I think there's nothing but upside for women in the future. I just think business-wise, I think they still need to learn how to negotiate for what they want and work with male teams. I think there's still a little bit of work to do because we don't have an equal workforce, 50-50 yet, and we don't have, only about 4% of women are in the CEO roles. So there's a long way up in that corporate ladder. But I say that women can definitely do it, but it's like a different culture that they have to learn. And if they learn that well, I don't think we need to there isn't the Me Too thing. If you learn how to navigate properly, how to be professional 100% of the time, how to talk to men, in a business way, so that the Me Too doesn't even come up, because they know that you're serious. They know you're focused. They know where your direction is, even if you're a gorgeous blonde or whatever. Because one of the girls I know is doing really, really well in fintech. She's blonde, she's young, whatever. And she gets all those comments. But rather than internalizing them and thinking, oh my God, this is awful, she just shows them her stuff, right? And then they back right off. They might think she's the secretary when they go into the meeting, but they sure leave knowing that she's in charge. You know what I mean?
She makes it clear.
She makes it clear. And I think that's what women have to do. And that's what they will do. They'll grow into their abundance. You know what I mean? They have fantastic skills. They just have to make sure that they showcase them.
Exactly. Thank you. Okay, any final piece of wisdom or key strategy that we should keep in mind to help us going forward? I always like putting people under pressure with this last question.
I think you have to, going back to question one, you have to, one, absolutely believe in yourself and your skill set. You have to network, just like guys do. Guys network on the golf course. So women have to learn where and how to network, both with male stakeholders and teams and with female stakeholders and teams. Learn how to network. Network means that you have like-minded things in common. You know how to work together. You're open to referring other people. You're collegial. That's what networking is, because then it will open up doors for you. Get a mentor. I absolutely 100%, even especially in the corporate world, you need a mentor. It can be a guy, it can be a woman, somebody who is willing to help you up the corporate ladder. And they're doing it because they believe in you. And, if it's a male, they really are going to help you if they 100% believe in you, because they're taking a risk too. Because, their colleagues could be laughing at them. Oh, why are you spending so much time helping so-and-so? Blah, blah, blah. So they have to be firmly committed into the strengths that you have and the strengths of women as leaders, and help you that way. And don't shy away from a male mentor. But a female mentor can be, if they're ahead of you in the corporate world or in entrepreneurship, and they can open doors for you,
Yeah.
then that's who you choose as a mentor.
Yeah.
I had a mentor in my corporate life, and I would never, I can unequivocally say, never have reached the stage that I was at if I hadn't had a mentor, because that person was higher up in the corporation than I was, had a much larger profile with the head office than I did. And so when they were asking for people to lead projects, she would always bring up my name. They hadn't a clue who I was, but because she supported me and said, well, this person can do this, this, and this, and that's what you need. Because they believed in her, they believed in me. Even though they didn't really need me. So know me, sorry. So that's the key part of mentorship. It's invaluable. That's my biggest thing. Find yourself a mentor.
Brilliant. Thank you. That is great. Thank you very much, Elaine. It's been lovely. It's fascinating to hear everything and to see the development that's happened over the last few years. And I really, really like the idea of your communities. I think that could help so many people, you know, if they do get into a community, because of the support you can get and the skills that you can share. I think it's an amazing idea. Wonderful. Anyway,
well, I hope that happens around the world. Nothing I would love better than to see something like that around the world.
Yeah, that would be fabulous. So thank you very much. Thank you for appearing on the show again. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your expert advice. And I will try not to leave it so long before the next time.
Well, it's been my pleasure. And thank you so much, Anna, for having me back on the show. I just love talking to you. It's been fantastic.
Thank you. So everybody, big thanks to Elaine Slatter. Thank you all for listening in or watching in, depending whether you're listening or watching. We will be back again next week. So I hope you will join us again on Women Up Radio then. Have a lovely evening, everybody.